What's going on, everybody? So if you weren't aware, as the draft was getting ready to start last night, Madden 20 kind of released its first info dump, and this is definitely going to be the biggest info dump we get for Madden 20. Now, obviously the Madden community, particularly the franchise community, has been very bitter with EA, myself included. I really have not held back, kind of voicing my displeasure with EA. So I hope that holds as evidence that if I was not satisfied with the direction that EA is going, that I would continue to speak up about it. But the reality is here, a lot of the things we're hearing here for Madden 20 is that the biggest of all is that EA is acknowledging that they have a very unhappy customer fan base right now, especially the most loyal fans that they have. And in my honest opinion, it does feel like EA is making efforts to appease them. Now, when the final product does come out, we're going to find out if it's more window painting, which is really what we've gotten for the last 3 or 4 years, or if they really are making these recommitments to gameplay and franchise mode, which are the core of this game, that will push this game in the right direction. And I also do understand from EA's perspective, there's only so much to ask for in a development cycle. So we're going to go through all of the things that they have just announced, and I can honestly say I am impressed with a lot of the stuff that they seem to be working on here. Again, it's still a wait-and-see approach. This company has not given us much reason to be optimistic for Madden 20, and I know we do this every year, right? But after kind of looking at these press releases now for 2 or 3 years, really being critical, having some conversations now with the people working on this game, I can honestly say that I am in a position to be cautiously optimistic for Madden 20. So basically in this video, we're going to just go through these press releases. So let's start with EA, what they came out here. Here's the big 3 that they're kind of advertising. The first one is obviously going to be this big career mode, which a lot of people have been asking for. Personally, when I first heard that they are going to be adding a career mode, I was a little skeptical because, you know, when they did Long Shot, it really took away from their investments into gameplay and franchise mode, and we definitely, you know, undisputedly saw a step back in the product. Now, I don't think it's fair to say that's because of Long Shot, but I do think it's fair to say that the distribution of resources have been questionable and their commitment to certain things. So I like that they're adding this. This is, when I make my wish list videos, it's not something I personally ask for because I'm more about improving gameplay and improving, you know, the realism and immersion of franchise mode. But I do know that this is a big thing, and if they do it well, you know, I love 2K, my player. And I think this could be a really fun game mode and a great addition, more so than I think Long Shot was. And I didn't even hate Long Shot, I just didn't like that other game modes stepped back while they were adding this thing in. So hopefully that's not happening again here with this face of the franchise. I think it's a good idea that they started here with just a quarterback being playable. Allows them to kind of concentrate it a little bit, you know, get the storylines a little better. Can really focus on, you know, the development and XP system for just one position. You know, there's a lot of differences between positions. So, you know, some people are gonna say, oh, why can't we play, you know, running back, wide receiver, punter, kicker, long snapper? You know, people want everything. Quarterback, obviously, gonna be the most popular position that people play. So I think that was a good call right there to just limit it to quarterback. So that kind of stood out to me. This thing right here has got me really excited and has me thinking that they're listening to community feedback. And I'm only assuming that this applies to franchise mode and is not just an ultimate team feature. Obviously, if this was missing from franchise mode, that would be an extreme disappointment. But this was very high on my wish list. And this kind of comes back to Ultimate Team. They really started to introduce these fun traits that kind of made some players better than others and gave them real superstar feeling traits. You know, the ability to make amazing catches, quarterbacks, you know, being able to have quicker releases under pressure, running backs that, you know, will always have the tackle battle button be on A, you know, certain things that have a player stand out, that it differentiates them from just the ratings. And I thought this would have been something that could have been an easy addition into Madden 19 franchise mode to really set yourself apart. And they really talk about something that I've talked about, you know, ad nauseum, and me and Ryan Moody have had conversations about this. Tom Brady is not a good Madden quarterback, and he is not someone that when you're playing franchise mode against a computer, you don't fear him because he can't run. Well, they're going to have traits now that make Tom Brady, you know, see that open receiver faster than other quarterbacks. And I really like, as something we'll see, because there's another article we're going to look at. Game Informer did 4 articles here that really dive into this stuff, but these are going to be dynamic, which makes you, you know, kind of confirms that it is in franchise mode now that I say that. And that's really cool. And that was one of my first initial reactions, was that's great that players are going to have this, but are they going to be editable in custom rosters? Because right now there's a lot of traits that you can't edit in custom rosters. Are they going to be something that you can actually upgrade? Because right now in Madden 19 you can't, you know, upgrade the strip ball trait or the swim move trait. You know, what you have is what you get, and they don't change for the life of a franchise mode. So I hope that, you know, these are organic, as they say. I hope they're in franchise mode. I also hope they applied, you know, the ability to upgrade other traits, not just these X Factor traits like Bull Rush, you know, throws tight spiral, those kind of things. But this definitely is a reaction to community feedback being implemented, you know, and confirmed here for Madden 19. And then we got Ultimate Team. We don't talk about Ultimate Team on this channel unless we're dissing it. You know, I will say, you know, Ultimate Team brings in a lot of money for EA, and if they use that money to put it in, you know, investing into improving their game, that's great. Up to this point, I feel Ultimate Team has taken away from Madden 19. So we're taking a wait-and-see approach with Madden 20 on that. So this is about gameplay. We're going to switch over here and talk about Game Informer here. So they mentioned some of the new features that we just talked about, but this is all about gameplay and how they're really, you know, recognizing that, you know, the game was buggy. It was not playable at this time of year last year, but they think the game's in a much better state this year. You know, some of this might be fluff and some of it might be true. I believe some of it. You know, they're in what year? Is it year 4 now with the new engine and the next generation of games? You know, I think they do have a good team of you know, game designers. I don't know anything about coding. I couldn't tell you the first thing about designing football gameplay. But this is really encouraging right here. I actually ironically tweeted like 2 weeks ago. I doubt that, you know, that made them implement this in a hurry. I'm sure they were already working on this, but the read pass option, sorry, the run pass option's been missing from Madden for about 2 years. You know, you can't dial up a football game 2017, 2018, 2019 without hearing an announcer talk about how important the run pass option is. So this is going to be really exciting. I'm assuming that this is going to be fairly similar to the read option, where you'll have one read on the play, usually in the slot, either on a slant or you know, a go route up the seam, and you're going to be reading that linebacker, and if he comes down on the run, you might like press A and your quarterback will pull the ball out and throw the pass. So I'm excited to see how they implement this. I'm personally very excited for this because it's such a big part of the NFL right now. And for someone that plays, you know, online franchise with a lot of, you know, a competitive league, quick plug, we are looking to fill up the wait list right now in the TFGO Heavy Sim League. I'll drop an application link here in the description. But this is definitely good to see them catching up with the times a little bit. That's something that Madden has needed, is a, you know, re-looking at where the NFL is and if their game is replicating that, because Madden 19 was not. They did not have run pass options. The contracts in franchise mode, I am not seeing anything in these articles about specifically fixing the asking prices of players, but those are outdated by about 10 years. A lot of aspects of this game do not represent simulation football. This is a, you know, good step in the right direction. And as far as the game being less buggy and playing better, you know, I'm optimistic about that for the reasons I said, but it's a total wait and see with that. You know, pardon my French, but it's really going to be cock on block week when they drop that first gameplay, because they know very well that the community was disappointed with the gameplay just in general and the amount of bugs that Madden 19 had, so they know that they have got to clean that up or the storm's only going to get bigger next year. And when gameplay's better, everything gets better. And this is my favorite article right here, right? And this is what EA, I think, had to say, with people like me, and not just me, hundreds of people in the Madden community with voices frustrated with the lack of attention to franchise mode. And that's been my big issue is, you know, I get putting time into MUT. It's a money maker. That's where you're going to keep making money once the game comes out. You need to make money. It's a competitive industry. I understand all of that. But for about 4 years, EA has literally ignored franchise mode. And this is the wording I thought they had to go with. Recommitment. Again, we're taking a wait and see approach. You know, EA has really made it hard for us to trust them when they say this. This is a big word to say this. We'll see the product that they end up putting out. But to at least acknowledge that franchise mode is not in a good place right now. And this is not EA's wording, by the way. This is a Game Informer article, but you can only assume that this is something that EA really was hoping was the message that was going to get across here. So what are they talking about in terms of features here? You know, we talked about the X Factor traits. I think that's a great addition. That was very high on my list because it's going to add some depth to the player development. It's going to add some diversity to the players. When you have a true superstar player, this is something that I really focus on my custom roster, is trying to create that true differential between your 90 overall superstars and your more replacement level starters that on my roster are in the 70s, but on EA's they're in like the 80s. So you don't really feel that difference. So I'm really excited for the dynamic traits. Now, the biggest thing on my wish list was about this kind of stuff right here. Trade logic, free agency, you know, team, you know, logic, basically. Scouting is a big request, and I get why that was in there. I would have preferred, you know, I wanted them to focus on contracts, asking prices for that stuff, and more of the just basic stuff before they even upgraded the scouting system. But I'm glad they are upgrading. I thought that would have been a nice next step, and it looks like they are taking a look at scouting this year. You know, Andre, you know, we're very familiar with Swami. I know that we're on the same page in terms of like what franchise mode needs, and I get that you can't add everything in one development cycle. But it is really good to hear that, you know, they are working on kind of the logic of the computer in terms of roster construction. So, you know, let's kind of speculate a little bit here. You know, we do have this scenario engine. Let's talk about that before we do a little speculation on features, because this is really cool. You know, if you want to read this, I'll link this article in the description. But basically, this is about, you know, trying to replicate real-life situations. Like, you know, Antonio Brown demanded a trade, and they didn't have anything like that in Madden, like anything like that. That's something 2K has. So the scenario engine, it's going to create dynamic storylines week to week based on how you're playing, records, stats, personalities of players. That's simulation, you know, franchise mode right there. So this is big, potentially big, if it's done correctly. Excited to see how it works. You know, they implemented a nice new system last year with organic development traits, and that totally blew up in its face because anyone that's played Madden 19 franchise mode, you could win Defensive Player of the Year, and because of the way they coded it, they would actually lose a development trait as opposed to gaining it. That's because only a certain amount of players get you know, are allowed to have star or superstar development. That, by the way, has got to get addressed. That was my biggest disappointment, was that was not patched in Madden 19. But the scenario engine paired with this new trait system, two big additions. Really big for me though is gonna be seeing what we're talking about in terms of this stuff right here: trade logic, free agency, contract asking prices, and then the last thing here is the scheme fit system changes would also apply into that. Those are kind of my big three: was roster management logic from the computer, the contract system getting overhauled, and then modernizing the way that the schemes are addressed. And there is a casual fan base that does not completely understand that the NFL no longer talks in terms of defensive tackle, defensive end, outside linebacker, and inside linebacker. That is no longer how the NFL thinks. It is now interior defensive line, edge rusher, and off-ball linebacker. It is time for EA and Madden to adjust to that. Now, we'll see. I didn't see anything in this that talks about that, but I do think there's people inside that building that understand that if they want to replicate simulation football and have an improved, you know, computer, where was that? The improved computer logic that we were talking about here. That's something that has to be addressed, because you'll have, you know, 3-4 outside linebackers that get signed and end up playing in the wrong position because they're listed as an outside linebacker, or defensive ends that are 300 pounds that if a 4-3 team signs should be playing inside defensive tackle, but they won't because they're just listed as a defensive end. So that's something that is not confirmed in here. Something I'm really expecting, but wait and see approach for that. And then on the future of franchise mode, I do think that this is the first year in a step towards a recommitment to franchise mode. I do believe that based on the things I'm hearing. Again, wait and see, but I'm cautiously optimistic about franchise mode. I don't think we're really going to get a whole lot of new information. This is just some screenshots about the QB1. You can see, they got Clemson to sign on. I don't know if yeah, I don't know. Okay, here we go. 10 colleges in the game, so you get to pick your team. That's really cool. I'm excited for this game mode. You get the underwear Olympics. Love to see Game Informer using that term. It's one of my favorite in the industry. Looking good. I did like the graphics in long shot. You got draft day drama. That's cool. You got to compete. All this stuff. I am curious, if it's going to have cutscenes and be like a 2K My Story, or if it's going to be a little more vanilla. Could be done really well. I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited to do Let's Plays of this because it's just a little more entertaining and can go in more directions than long shot that you already know the ending of. So as long as this does not take away from adding features to franchise mode, I'm for it. But I'm skeptical given what happened with long shot and Madden Ultimate Team in the past. So if this is something they can sell on the box and just kind of sell the same game next year, that's not what we want. But there's reason to be optimistic based on some of the things we're hearing. And this talks about the ability system. This talks a little bit more about some of the specific traits that we're going to be seeing. Slot machine gives receivers better separation at the line and catching ability. Pocket quarterbacks, this is what I talked about. Protected gives them more time from their offensive linemen engaged in blocks. That's interesting. Fearmonger ability allows Aaron Donald to apply more pressure. Brady's clutch trait, so dependent on the time and game situation. Okay, so that's an expansion on the idea of a clutch trait. Most of these abilities have counter abilities across the line of scrimmage, so if you've got a really good interior superstar going against Aaron Donald, they're going to butt head-to-head and counter each other. That's cool. These are just the start. There are also those who are a cut above called X-Factor players. So you got superstar abilities and X-Factor players. And X-Factor players have at least 2 superstar abilities, but they also a zone ability that lets them get into the zone. And then once they're in the zone, then they are able to get added boosts. Okay, so this would probably be something about confidence or meeting a certain standard at the start of the game. Yeah, here we go. So Juju catches 4. Some of the wording is hard to read here. If Juju Smith-Schuster catches 4 run after the catch rack passes of 20 yards or more, he's in the zone. And then once he's in the zone, you get abilities like this. Tackle breaker allows you to frequently break. So this is kind of like the equivalent of 2K's like microwave, where they're, they heat up, or not microwave. What's the one where I can't remember. I haven't played 2K in a while, but there's one where like you get in the zone and then they had abilities like this is basically what I'm trying to say. So that'll be fun, and it's going to make the gameplay more dynamic because, once you get these superstar players to get in the zone, you're going to really feel them cooking. And when I used to play Ultimate Team, abilities like this did improve the gameplay for me because you really, enjoyed having superstar players. So I think that's really cool that they're adding this stuff. Assuming it's done well, that's going to be a big upgrade for franchise mode. So that's really all I've got. I'm having a cautiously optimistic approach. I don't think it can be much worse than Madden 19. I still think, I'm not saying, everything's fine. EA's trying again. They've got a long way to climb to earn our trust again. I'm not even going to tell you to, pre-order the game and, have hope for Madden 20. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm going to have a very honest review. I think I have a very solid grasp on what our expectations should be if the game is is, you know, in the right direction, and if they truly did a good job. Everything here sounds good. I'm really excited to see the finished product after seeing some of this stuff. The biggest question for me is how much attention is going into the contracts, the free agency, the computer logic, as well as updating those, you know, edge positions, and really focusing on some of those core integral issues of franchise mode. That, yeah, you can have these nice flashy features like a superstar, you know, trait system, but if you've still got your superstar quarterback Patrick Mahomes asking for $15 million less than he should be, it's going to really ruin the immersion. So I think there's still some really core issues with franchise mode that are not confirmed here, that, you know, I've talked about at labor in the past, and I'm really excited to see if they're going to address those things as well. But we do get some nice upgrades here to franchise mode. Also, have to say this again, fix the freaking development trait system. It ruins franchise mode. If I win defensive player of the year, there is no way in hell that your code and your system should allow a player to lose a development trait. That is the #1 problem with Madden franchise mode right now. So please fix it. I like the development trait system, but it has got to get upgraded, and I need to hear some confirmation on that, or just see it before the game comes out. So that's going to do it. Comprehensive breakdown of Madden 20. We're going to have more Madden content coming out. I wanted to just talk about some of this stuff. Obviously, draft stuff is the priority for me right now. But excited to hear what you guys think and what your opinions are leading into Madden 20. So peace out, guys. Hit that like button, and we'll see you later.